Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis, in this series on the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's segment is about the annual meeting of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund that's being held this week in Washington, D.C. I'm grateful to Carmen Stanley, producer and director, Mo Jackson, audio and prompter, and Mark Wesley, floor director. I mailed the minutes of the meeting of the 25 Ministers of Development that's being held on October 8th to the embassies in Washington and emailed them to New York missions and Tokyo embassies. These minutes have been tweeted and retweeted. Not a single country has corrected these minutes. These minutes tell you that the global currency reset will replace paper currencies and eliminate that scam called country debt. Last year, the World Bank and International Monetary Fund annual meetings were held in Peru. In Peru, I met face-to-face with over 20 delegations, and the Board of Governors agreed that I speak for the 188 ministers of finance on the board unless they rescind what I have said in writing. I also vote the shares of the United States on the Board of Governors during the interregnum. That is, while the United States Constitution has been suspended by the United States Congress. As we have learned in earlier segments, the United States Congress suspends the Constitution of 1789 by declaring a state of emergency each year behind closed doors. Just so you know how high the stakes are, let me share my answer to a question last year when the global currency reset they were asking, when is the global currency reset going to happen to replace paper currencies? And I retweeted this answer a couple of days ago. Quote, "This is in response to Cindy Lystad's question about the timing for replacing paper currencies with currencies out of gold from the Global Debt Facility. You will find out at the annual meetings of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund in Peru on October 9th through 11th in 2015, whether we are all going to descend into World War III or whether the global currency reset is going to be implemented. The global currency reset was agreed in 2015 in the spring meetings by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund that administer the Global Debt Facility. NCPERS, which is the voice for public pensions, including the General Counsel in California's Treasury, Mark Pagson, and Sharon Hicks, who's on the California State Teachers Retirement System Board, as well as the board of NCPERS, will not allow the pensions to fail without backing of the United States monetary gold reserves. I told this last week to Hank Kim and Cassandra Smoot. I met Hank Kim outside his offices. The fact that the network of global corporate control has not succeeded in stealing the world's assets this past year, despite many attempts in vain, and only exposing the network of global corporate control further, it's an indication that the Coalition for the Rule of Law is winning. Who is the network of global corporate control? That is a group that has been issuing paper currencies and lying to you and using chemtrails and low-frequency military weaponry trying to control your thoughts. I said that I had mailed the minutes of the Development Committee meeting, but actually I hand-delivered these minutes to the Russian and Indian embassies, and that was how I happened to talk with an official in the Russian embassy on the 30th of September. Why did I hand-deliver the letters to the Russian and Indian embassies? I explained this in a tweet about mind control. The subject of mind control came up in a question that was raised in the YouTube comment section after I uploaded last week's segment on DCTV to YouTube. And the question was, Karen, how can the directed energy weapons direct to any one person? There would have to be some device within someone for it to be isolated to any one person. Tell us what you know about it. And my response was, the targeted individuals will be happy to tell you about it. This is a vast topic. This should get you started. And I have a link to a military textbook on mind control. And this link has been erased many, many times, and I put it back up again, and you'll find that in your teleprompter, which I will also put up after the segment today. And I said, this is a follow-up on my previous tweet forwarding links from a military publication about mind control. This technology is very real, but once you know it exists, you can use it to your own advantage, like jujitsu. If you know yourself and you observe that you're making stupid mistakes, you can attribute some of these mistakes to mind control, and that way you learn hidden truths. As an example, I needed to contact the Washington embassies of the countries on the World Bank and International Monetary Fund's Development Committee. This committee exists because of state capture of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund secretariats. That means they're corrupt. Its formal name is the Joint Ministerial Committee of the Boards of Governors of the Bank and the Fund on the Transfer of Real Resources to Developing Countries. I described how the Development Committee came into existence in an article that I wrote when I was a law student. And there's a quote in the teleprompter. You can read what I wrote then. The Russian embassy wanted me to just mail the envelope that I was talking to them about, but I explained to them that there were problems that I was having with the USPS because they refused to deliver my priority mail to the Japanese embassy. So then I was able to explain to the Russian embassy how many people understand what's going on through the internet, and that my letter to them was actually already read by many, and that they could access the letter through the internet. I was happy when the duty officer agreed with me about the illegitimacy of the United States government. I sent an earlier email on the 28th of November 2012 to that same email address after I had spoken with a legal officer in the Russian embassy on the 2012 Rule of Law Index. And there's a clip which I hope you can show. This is what I wrote to the Russian embassy on the 28th of May. Are you all going to be able to run the clip now? Karen Hudis. I was in the legal department of the World Bank for 20 years. I'm a fired whistleblower, and I'm about to be reinstated, I believe. Okay, so let me now read to you from the email that I sent on May 28th, 2015. But my question is the following. None of you in the audience know about my story. It's very fitting that we're holding this conference in the museum room. How much of the accuracy of your data depends on dissemination of information by the press? And if the press is not telling the public what the public needs to know, the public needs to wait until it gets the information, and then you need to run the figures again. So I second very heartily the question from my Russian colleague. Okay, now here is an email that I sent on 2015 to the Russian embassy. And I'm going to have to read this. Okay, here we go. Please give my regards to Mr. Myakov, the alternate executive director at the World Bank. I believe that my email to the Russian executive director's office was interfered with. The counters for my 2013 RT interview with Sophie Shevardnadze have been stuck at over 796,000 for the last 2 years. So we're now having a conversation about humanity and reality on the internet. Who is we? We are the world's people, and we're organized into nations, but we ignore the illegal company governments. And we're still making use of the Bretton Woods institutional framework because that is how we can carry out the global currency reset without descending into World War III. What do I mean by illegal company governments? Last week, I reminded people how governments are now companies. All of them are represented by CT Corporation System, which is owned by a Dutch company named Wolters Kluwer. And I tweeted, they want to control all of the property in the world. Let's talk a bit about what is in the tweet that I sent about the Dutch East India Company and the ultimate owner of Wolters Kluwer. This quote is from an email to me. Quote, I think we all need to step back, take a deep breath, consider this demonic Goliath, and realize what we're all up against. And that's the end of the email to me. I have repeatedly referred to the criminal conspiracy of the Bar Association and have advocated for their abolition. But this is a whole new ballgame. This umbrella brand and its ultimate parent company, Wolters Kluwer, involves every corporation, every judge, every attorney in the master plan to take everything they can from anybody they can, anywhere they can, and to do it, quote, legally. And here is a quote from an historian named George Bancroft, and he lived between 1800 and 1891. Quote, history interposes with evidence that tyranny and wrong lead inevitably to decay, that freedom and right, however hard may be the struggle, always prove resistless. That's the end of the quote. I also want to talk about an email to me from Wolfgang Struck that Wolfgang sent me back in 2014 when Izumi Takahashi, that is a Japanese journalist, and I had sent Wolfgang tickets for him to join us in Tokyo. I was living in Tokyo at the time. I tweeted this email on the 24th of September saying, quote, Jose Rizal was trustee for 2 quadrillion Treaty of Versailles bonds. And that was on the 13th of May. And the subject was the Philippines from Wolfgang Struck to me. And this is what Wolfgang said. Having read this, I must have a real reason why I should not join you in Tokyo on May 17, 2014. I'm working on something very big. After decades of denial, we have reason to believe that the United States Treasury, in connection with the World Bank, IMF, and UN, is now willing to tackle the issue of old Federal Reserve boxes and pay for it. We started in the assumption that 2% of face value would be paid. That would be $60 billion per box in an environment where the biggest banks in the world are not allowed to hold accounts of more than $10 billion in cash. We have delivered detailed lists for 80 such boxes so far. We're willing to let go against a viable payment scheme in which would include a few central banks around the world. I'm the arranger between holder-seller party and the party that has the right to sell to United States Treasury, and I'm looking at huge amounts of money coming my way. You will understand that I cannot go away from this for a while. We hope this will be over before the end of May 2014. And now that's the end of Wolfgang's email to me. The reason that the Treaty of Versailles bonds are also in the global debt facility is because Jose Rizal also became the agent for the royalty who sold their gold to the network of global corporate control. Jose Rizal also represented the Vatican as the Black Pope, that is, the Superior General of the Jesuits. I'm quoting now from another email from Wolfgang Struck that was sent to the World Bank's country director in the Philippines, Mr. Joachim van Amsberg, on the 14th of March 2011. And it was sent on March 14th, 2011. Since 1950, the assets deposited by Jose Antonio Diaz, the papal nuncio and trustee of both the Vatican and the former royal families of Europe, those who had abdicated their powers in the Treaty of Versailles under condition that they keep their gold secret, had been safely deposited in trust under the international law of bailment in banks. Many people get, And this is the end of Wolfgang's quote. Now, I'm telling you, many people get how we're going forward. Here is a comment on my last video about the bank wars and Andrew Jackson from Wendy Koval. Quote, "Thank you again, Karen. As the truth is revealed, we need to learn and relearn history as it's very different than we had been taught. It's very interesting to me now. I guess the truth is resonating with many of us. The fake history that was shoved down on us as a control device never felt right or was interesting. It's all starting to make sense now." That's the end of the quote from Wendy. In the last live segment 2 weeks ago, I mentioned how the Jesuits have tried to mix us up by falsifying our history. Professor Anatoly Fomenko and others at Moscow State University showed how ancient Greek history actually occurred in the Middle Ages and how some dynasties were repeated in different eras. The network of global corporate control blocked Professor Fomenko's website in English, that's named Chronologia, for 5 days. The website was put right back up after we complained. I tweeted a couple of the subjects that are going to be covered in today's segment in the comments section of an article in Russia Today about how much of the news is fake. I said that a critical mass of people are aware of the difference between reality and the fake news, and that the world is never going to be the same now that some of us know the difference between the fake news and reality. I put the teleprompters for these segments on my social media and upload the shows on YouTube, and when YouTube refuses to take a show, which is what happened for the shows on gold, the military, and secret societies, then I just upload the shows to archive.org. People value honest feedback, and so do I. I document everything and answer your questions. You can email your questions to me at karenhudas@hotmail.com. Last week's segment showed me as Overseer Mandate Trustee standing on a pile of liars for the network of global corporate control. One question on YouTube was, which are the main liars that I'm standing on? The global currency reset is going to clean up world corruption. How will the corruption be cleaned up? Why, this is going to be done by humanity working together in coalitions. The Catholics are going to clean up the Vatican and the Jesuits. Jim Kim has been fired and is no longer the president of the World Bank, so he is definitely one of those bodies on the pile. So is Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the IMF, the former managing director of the IMF. In preparing this teleprompter, I just found out that Twitter deleted one of my tweets showing how the presidential campaign in the United States is simply a staged event full of lies leading up to systemic tampering with voting machines. So 2 of those bodies would be Donald Trump's and Hillary Clinton's. The erased tweet had a YouTube of Bernard Sensory, who's the former president of the Senate in Haiti, asking Donald Trump to report the Clinton Foundation's theft of 98% of the funds that were collected after Haiti's hurricane. And there is a clip. Will you be able to show that now?
Publicly, Hillary Clinton, during your next debate, to publish the audit of all the money they have stolen from Haiti. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Incredible. That's a terrible experience you've had.
Hillary Clinton are traitors for refusing to exchange unconstitutional Federal Reserve notes for United States dollars out of the U.S. monetary gold reserves that are administered by the 188 ministers of finance on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF. One of the bodies in the heap is Joseph Dunford Jr., who's chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he is definitely not a white knight. The rest of the bodies are the elites, and you can find a list of these elites and I've given you a link and also a publication. DCTV has broadcast this series for 1.5 years. At the beginning of the series, I said that you could tell whether we were making progress by measuring how much the media is trusted, both the mainstream media and the alternative media. Recent surveys show that only 6% of the people trust the news, so there's progress. But now that we realize most of the people distrust the media, I am now saying that you can measure progress by consciousness. That is, the difference between your understanding of reality, in other words, what you know to be true, and what the media is showing you, their lies. And now our DCTV program is receiving a lot of praise as the most interesting program on media. And I'll read you one of the comments on YouTube. Once again, the most interesting program on media has shown us how history is repeating itself. The irony that central banks have always been in the business of corrupting politics and violating the Constitution is becoming redundant. This historical perspective is appreciated by only a few people. Few, if anyone, can actually comprehend its importance. I'm just beginning to open my own eyes, and the vision is showing me just why certain events in my life, my family, and our family business fell the way they did. Greed and corruption have prevented innovation and development of new industries that would have outcompeted the established corporations that are solely owned by the elite and banksters. Unraveling the criminal web of corporate conspiracy and banking fraud will take actions from a wide range of political, military, and judicial activists. Thank you, Karen, for cluing us in to Bank War II. And I see we've got some time left, so let me start out first by giving you an appeal from Sean Hross. You'll recall Sean Hross is the courageous journalist. He's from South Africa, who gave us the information about the network of global corporate control being in Switzerland. And what I've heard from him is that he sent me a translation. Now the Swiss Nazis of the state have passed another jail sentence on me and are trying to get my wife in prison as well. I could use help from a lawyer. Now, I told Sean Hross that I'm working more than full-time on the global currency reset, but anybody else that is willing to help him out, please get in touch with me. There's a lot of work to be done. We can't have people who are working for all of us being victimized. So that's one of the things I wanted to tell you about. And another thing is from Paul Jenkinson, who you'll recall is in the United Kingdom and has been sending me a lot of very, very interesting information. Some of the information that he sent to me was actually not so helpful, and I was wondering if he might be a victim of mind control. I asked him that, and he said, yes, that's quite probable. And one of the reasons that he's very happy to be working together in a group of people is that these people can point out to him things that are atypical, and that way he's able to see where he's actually being influenced by this military technology. So let me read you what Paul Jenkinson sent to me. He's also been trying to tweet things, and there's been interference there. Okay, this is from Paul. Dear Karen, you advised me that I may be affected by mind control that has diverted me from how important sequencing is, focusing on getting gold out of hiding and transitioning to local currency. I'm trying to reach out to people of Holmfirth and to inform them of what they need to prepare for. The network of global corporate control is not liking this and seems to be removing my Holmfirth feed tweets. So that's one of the things I wanted to tell you. And I see we have, about 3 minutes now? So let me tell you another thing that you'll find on your teleprompter. We've been talking about some of the suppressed technologies, and one of the people that's been helping me a lot is Mike Brakey, and Mike has been telling me that there's a very good source of energy that has been just sabotaged by the network of global corporate control. And one of the reasons that they've been doing this is because they make a lot of profit from petroleum. And so this this technology is now something that we had in the United States invested many millions of dollars, and the reason why it's so tragic that we don't have this source of energy available to us, it's a clean source of energy, is because this business about there being global warming, that is the total lie. The information that we've been getting has been fabricated. There's actually going to be a mini ice age. And if we're not able to switch over to better sources of energy, many of us we're going to succumb. So we've got a lot of work to do, working together to avoid World War III, to switch over to a good power source before we get this mini ice age. And of course, there's no reason for there to be country debt, as we've seen, because when we've done the global currency reset, there's not going to be any country debt. What we were talking about when we were talking about the $2 quadrillion worth of Treaty of Versailles bonds, we're going to offset this against country debt. But obviously, we're going to have to work together in a very coordinated fashion because we don't want to do anything abruptly. We don't want to send the market into a tailspin. And this is going to be particularly challenging because, as you've seen, the journalists have been co-opted, so have the lawyers, and so have the accountants. So we're going to have to get ourselves up to speed, and it's not going to be something that's going to happen 1, 2, 3. Also, there's been a lot of challenges to our health with what's going on with the chemtrails. This was done by design, and one of the reasons that they're putting all of these metals into the atmosphere is to interfere with many of our innate abilities. One of the conversations that I had in preparing for this program was with Walter Burian, who some of you know has been talking about all of the money that has been hidden in the local jurisdictions. There's something called a comprehensive annual financial report. Well, we're not going to have time to go into all of these details, but there is a lot of information that some of you have. You obviously need to get yourselves up to speed, and we're going to have the luxury, actually, of taking our time in all of this. The only thing that we have to work quickly on is in the global currency reset to exchange the paper currencies for first treasury currency and then for currency that contains the international monetary gold reserves. And the chances that we succeed in doing this, we are actually working together. There is a coalition. That you can tell that there is a coalition, or we would have had World War III. One of the questions, obviously, is whether we're going to succeed in avoiding all of these dire consequences, World War III, the crash of the paper currencies. And the point is, yes, I believe we are. I do believe that the coalition for the rule of law is stronger than the network of global corporate control. I want to thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's segment is about the annual meeting of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund in Washington this week. The Coalition for the Rule of Law has given people a different yardstick to measure progress in cleaning up the corruption in the international monetary system. It's not easy, but there is no turning back.